The first time my wife publicly humiliated me, I should have seen it coming. But standing there at the Hendersons' backyard barbecue, beer in hand, watching Olivia's perfectly manicured fingers gesture dismissively in my direction, I felt something cold settle in my chest that had nothing to do with the October evening. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "Oh, please, Linda," Olivia laughed, her voice carrying that particular pitch that meant she'd had just enough wine to say what she really thought. "You can have him. I've been thinking about trading up anyway." The circle of neighbors went quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of people enjoying good food and conversation, but that sharp, electric silence that happens when someone crosses a line they can't uncross. I could feel their eyes bouncing between Olivia and me like spectators at a tennis match, waiting to see who would serve next. Linda Morrison, bless her heart, tried to salvage the moment with a nervous laugh. "Well, I wouldn't mind having a man who actually knows how to fix things around the house." "Oh, Ed's great with his hands," Olivia continued, and I could hear the venom wrapped in honey. "It's just a shame he's not so great with ambition, or personal hygiene, or—" "Olivia." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Maybe we should—" "What? I'm just being honest." She turned to face me fully, and I saw something in her eyes I'd been ignoring for months. Contempt. Pure, undiluted contempt. "It's not like it's a secret that I settled." Derek Foster, standing just behind her with his perfectly pressed polo shirt and his perfectly white teeth, chuckled. "Come on, Ed. You know she's just kidding around." Derek. My former business partner. My former friend. The man who'd been finding excuses to drop by our house when I wasn't home, always with some story about needing to discuss old business with Olivia. The man whose cologne I'd been smelling on my wife's clothes for the past month. "Sure," I said, taking a long drink of my beer. "Just kidding around." But I wasn't kidding. And as I looked around that circle of faces, some embarrassed, some entertained, all of them watching to see how the pathetic husband would react to being dressed down in public, I felt something shift inside me, something that had been building for a long time. "You know what, Olivia?" I set down my beer and pulled out my car keys. "You're absolutely right. I should pack tonight. Save you the trouble of trading me in yourself." For just a second, her confident smile faltered. "Ed, I was just—" No, you were being honest. I appreciate that." I looked around the circle, meeting each pair of eyes. Anyone else have any feedback on my performance as a husband? Now's the time. The silence stretched until Derek cleared his throat. "Look, man, nobody's trying to—" "Actually," I interrupted, "I think my wife just did exactly that, so let me return the favor." I looked directly at Olivia, and I saw her face go pale. "I'll pack my tools too. Wouldn't want to leave anything behind that might be useful to someone who actually deserves it." I walked away before anyone could respond, but I heard Linda call out behind me, "Ed, wait! I was serious about that trade." That got a few laughs, but not from Olivia. At home, I sat in my workshop in the basement, surrounded by the tools and projects that had been my refuge for years. The half-finished cabinet I'd been building for Olivia's birthday. The jewelry box I'd made for our anniversary that she'd never bothered to use. Evidence of a marriage that had been dying by degrees while I pretended everything was fine. My phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. "Come back. People are asking questions." I typed back, "Let them ask." Another buzz. "You're embarrassing me." This time I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and started doing something I should have done months ago. I started paying attention. Olivia's social media accounts were a gold mine of information once you knew what to look for. Check-ins at restaurants I'd never been to. Photos with friends that included Derek's reflection in windows and mirrors. comments and likes that painted a picture of a woman who'd been planning her exit strategy for a long time. But it was her phone records that really opened my eyes. I'd been paying the bill for our family plan for 15 years, which meant I had access to all the usage details. Late-night calls to Derek's number going back 3 months, text message timestamps that corresponded perfectly with her girls' nights out and work events. My wife wasn't just cheating on me, she was stupid about it. I heard her car in the driveway around midnight. The front door opened and closed with exaggerated quiet, like she was trying not to wake me. I listened to her footsteps on the stairs, heard the bathroom door close, heard the shower start. Washing off the evidence, I thought. How considerate. When she finally came down to the basement, she was wearing her most expensive nightgown and her most apologetic expression. Ed? Honey, I'm sorry about tonight. I had too much wine and you said what you really think. That's not true. I love you. You know that. I turned around in my chair to face her. Do I? She perched on the edge of my workbench, a pose that would have worked on me 6 months ago. Of course you do. We've been together for 15 years. We have a life together. We had a life together. Past tense. Don't be dramatic. So I made a stupid joke. People do that. People do. Wives don't. Not about their husbands. Not in front of the whole neighborhood. She sighed, like I was being unreasonable. Fine. I'll apologize to everyone tomorrow. I'll tell them I was drunk and stupid. Will you apologize to Derek too? The question hung in the air between us. I watched her face carefully, saw the micro-expressions she couldn't quite control, the slight widening of her eyes, the almost imperceptible tightening around her mouth. What does Derek have to do with anything? You tell me. I don't know what you're implying, but I'm not implying anything, Olivia. I'm asking a direct question. Will you apologize to Derek too? If you want me to, sure, but I don't see why, because he's been screwing my wife for the past 3 months, and I think that deserves some kind of acknowledgement. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. Ed, that's crazy. Derek and I are just what? Just friends? Just business associates? Just 2 people who happen to text each other at 2 in the morning? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You've been spying on me? I've been paying attention. Finally. Took me long enough, right? She stood up from the workbench, her whole body tense. I don't have to listen to this. You're being paranoid and... The Riverside Motel on Elm Street, room 237, last Tuesday at 3 p.m. You told me you were at book club. The fight went out of her like air from a punctured tire. She sank back onto the workbench, her hands shaking. How long have you known? Long enough. Are you going to divorce me? I looked at her sitting there in her expensive nightgown, makeup smeared, finally showing me something real for the first time in months. Fear. I haven't decided yet. Ed, please. I made a mistake. It didn't mean anything. Derek was just what? Available? Convenient? Better than me? No, that's not... Because that's what you said tonight, in front of everyone, that you settled for me, that you were thinking about trading up. Tears started running down her cheeks, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no desire to comfort her, no instinct to fix what was broken. Just a cold, calculating anger that surprised me with its clarity. I didn't mean it, she whispered. Yes, you did. That's the problem. I turned back to my laptop, dismissing her. After a few minutes, I heard her footsteps on the stairs. I heard the bedroom door close. I heard her crying through the ceiling, and I got back to work. The next morning, Olivia was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to my sister's for a few days. We need space to figure this out. Space. Right. I called in sick to work and spent the day making phone calls. First to a locksmith, then to a lawyer, then to my old friend Mick, who'd left the police force 5 years ago to start his own security consulting business. Ed, Jesus, I'm sorry, man. What do you need? Information, and maybe some advice on what's legal and what isn't. Legal advice I can do. But if you're thinking about doing something stupid, I'm thinking about doing something smart. Finally. Mick was quiet for a moment. Okay, come by the office this afternoon. We'll talk. Mick's office was in a strip mall between a dry cleaner and a tax preparation service, but the man himself looked like he could still take down a suspect half his age. He listened to my story without interruption, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. So, what do you want to accomplish here? He asked when I finished. I want them to pay. Financially? Emotionally? Socially? Yes. He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Okay, but we do this right. No breaking the law, no violence, nothing that can come back on you in court. You want to destroy them? We destroy them the right way. What's the right way? We give them exactly what they deserve. Nothing more, nothing less. Over the next 2 hours, Mick laid out what he called the nuclear option. It was elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its potential impact. It would take time, patience, and careful execution. But when it was over, Derek Foster and my cheating wife would understand exactly what it meant to underestimate Edward Tate. You sure about this? Mick asked as I prepared to leave. Once you start down this road, there's no going back. I'm sure. And you're okay with being the bad guy? I thought about that for a moment. About 15 years of marriage. About all the times I'd bitten my tongue, swallowed my pride, put her needs before mine. About standing in that circle of neighbors while she publicly humiliated me for sport. I've been the good guy for 15 years, I said. How's that worked out for me? Mick nodded. Then let's get to work. The first phase of the plan was simple. Documentation. Mick provided me with a small, high-resolution camera and taught me how to use it. He also gave me a GPS tracker, completely legal as long as I only used it on vehicles I co-owned. Your wife's car is in both your names, right? Right. Then you have every legal right to know where it goes. Over the next week, I became a student of my wife's infidelity. I learned that she and Derek met every Tuesday and Thursday at the Riverside Motel. I learned that they also met for lunch every Friday at a restaurant across town. I learned that Derek had been telling his own wife he was working late when he was actually parked in the lot behind the old Sears building, making out with Olivia like a teenager. I documented everything: times, dates, locations, photographs. I built a case that would have made Mick proud back in his detective days. But documentation was just the foundation. The real plan was much more sophisticated. Derek Foster owned a small construction company that specialized in commercial renovations. What most people didn't know was that Derek had been cutting corners for years, using substandard materials and falsifying inspection reports. I knew this because I'd worked with him for 3 years before our partnership dissolved in a mess of accusations and bad blood. I'd kept quiet about Derek's business practices because I'd thought we were friends, because I'd believed in loyalty and honor and all those quaint concepts that seemed so naive now. But friends don't sleep with friends' wives, and honor is a luxury I could no longer afford. I started with Derek's biggest client, the new medical complex being built on the north side of town. A single anonymous tip to the city building inspector about potential code violations. Nothing specific, just enough to trigger a thorough review of Derek's work. The inspection happened on a Thursday. I know because I was parked across the street, watching Derek pace around the construction site while the inspector examined his electrical work. The same electrical work Derek had signed off on without bothering to hire a licensed electrician. Derek's phone rang constantly that afternoon. I could see him getting more agitated with each call. By the time the inspector left, Derek looked like a man who'd just watched his career catch fire. Phase 2 began that evening. Olivia came home around 8 o'clock, looking frazzled and upset. She'd been staying at her sister's house for a week, but she still had clothes and personal items at our place. She was supposed to be packing them up. Instead, She sat down at the kitchen table and started crying. "Bad day?" I asked. She looked up at me with red, puffy eyes. "Derek's in trouble. Some problem with one of his jobs. He might lose the contract." "That's too bad." "Ed, I need to tell you something." "I'm listening." "Derek and we've been seeing each other. I know you already know, but I wanted to say it out loud. I wanted to be honest." "Okay." "Is that all you're going to say?" I sat down across from her at the table where we'd eaten thousands of meals together, where we'd paid bills and planned vacations and talked about having children we'd never had. "What do you want me to say, Olivia?" "I want you to fight for me. I want you to be angry. I want you to care enough to try to win me back." "Why?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "Because we're married. Because we love each other. Because 15 years has to count for something." "Do we love each other?" "I love you." "No, you don't. You love the idea of me. You love having someone who pays the bills and fixes things around the house and doesn't ask too many questions. But you don't love me." "That's not true." "Then why Derek?" She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because he makes me feel special. Because he tells me I'm beautiful and smart and funny. Because when I'm with him, I remember who I used to be before I became just someone's wife." "And what am I supposed to do with that information?" "Fight for me. Show me that you want me. Make me remember why I married you." I looked at this woman I'd shared my life with, this stranger who thought love was something you won or lost, something you had to fight for like a prize in a contest. "I can't make you remember something that never existed," I said. She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I'm going to pack the rest of my things," she said. "I'll be out of here by the weekend." "Take your time." She stood up, hesitated, then sat back down. "Ed, what happened to us?" "You traded me in. Remember? That's what you said you wanted to do." "I was drunk. I was stupid. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. And you know what? You were right. You did settle. You could have done better." For a moment, hope flickered in her eyes. But so could I. The hope died. "I'll be upstairs," she said. After she left, I sat alone in the kitchen and thought about the next phase of the plan. It was the riskiest part, but also the most important. Because Derek Foster wasn't just going to lose a construction contract, he was going to lose everything. And so was my wife. The next morning, I drove to the office of Hartwell and Associates, the law firm that handled most of Derek's business contracts. I'd done renovation work for them 2 years ago, which meant I had a relationship with the office manager, a sharp woman named Patricia who remembered everyone and forgot nothing. "Ed, how nice to see you. How's that kitchen renovation working out?" "Perfect. You were right about the granite countertops. Patricia, I need to ask you something, and it's a little awkward." "What's on your mind?" "I've been hearing rumors about Derek Foster's company, problems with inspections, code violations, that sort of thing. I'm supposed to start a job with him next month, and I'm wondering if I should be concerned." Patricia's expression grew serious. "I can't discuss client business, but let me just say that if I were in your position, I might want to consider other options." "That bad?" "Bad enough that we're reviewing all of our contracts with his company." "I appreciate the heads up." "Of course. We contractors have to look out for each other." I left Patricia's office with exactly what I'd come for, confirmation that Derek's business was in serious trouble. But more importantly, I'd planted a seed. Patricia was a gossip, and by the end of the day, half the business community would know that Derek Foster was having problems. In a small town, reputation is everything, and Derek's was about to become toxic. That afternoon, I met Mick at a coffee shop downtown to discuss Phase 3. "You sure about this next part?" he asked. "Once you pull this trigger, there's no taking it back." "I'm sure." "And you're prepared for the fallout? Because this is going to get ugly." "It's already ugly. I'm just making it visible." Mick slid a manila envelope across the table. "Everything you need is in there. Instructions, contact information, timeline. Follow it exactly, and by next Friday, your wife and her boyfriend will be front-page news. I opened the envelope and scanned the contents. It was even more comprehensive than I'd expected. Mick, this is professional, thorough, and completely legal. That's what you're paying for. How do you know all this will work? Because I've seen it work before. People like Derek and Olivia, they think they're smarter than everyone else. They think they can do whatever they want without consequences, but they always make the same mistake. Which is, they underestimate the people they hurt. That evening, Olivia finished packing her things. She loaded her car with suitcases and boxes, moving through the house like a ghost. I watched from the kitchen window as she made trip after trip, dismantling 15 years of shared life one armload at a time. When she was done, she came back inside and found me in the living room. "I guess this is it," she said. "I guess so. Ed, I want you to know that I never meant for things to end this way. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me. Repeatedly. Deliberately. I know, and I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there are consequences. But you're not sorry for what you did." She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. For once, she had nothing to say. "I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce," she said finally. "You do that." She turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I did love you. Once. Once isn't enough." After she left, I poured myself a drink and sat in my empty house, surrounded by the spaces where her things used to be, the gaps on the bookshelf where her novels had been, the empty spot on the mantel where her picture with her sister used to sit, the silence where her voice used to fill the rooms with complaints and criticisms and casual cruelty. It was the most peaceful I'd felt in years. But the peace wouldn't last. Starting tomorrow, I was going to war. Phase 3 began on Monday morning with a phone call to the state contractor's licensing board. I provided them with detailed information about Derek's code violations, falsified inspection reports, and use of unlicensed subcontractors. I also provided photographic evidence, courtesy of Mick's surveillance equipment. The licensing board took these things very seriously, especially when they involved public safety and commercial buildings. Derek would be facing a full investigation, possible license suspension, and criminal charges if the evidence supported prosecution. But that was just the appetizer. The main course was a comprehensive dossier that Mick had prepared, documenting Derek's affair with Olivia in excruciating detail. Photos, phone records, credit card receipts, hotel registrations, everything needed to paint a complete picture of two people who thought they were too clever to get caught. I hand-delivered copies of this dossier to 3 people: Derek's wife, Susan, Olivia's boss at the marketing firm where she worked, and the editor of the local newspaper's lifestyle section. Susan Foster was a nice woman who'd been married to Derek for 12 years. She taught 3rd grade at the elementary school and volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends. She deserved to know what kind of man she was married to. Olivia's boss, Margaret Chen, was a no-nonsense businesswoman who'd built her firm's reputation on trust and reliability. She wouldn't appreciate having an employee whose personal drama could reflect poorly on the company. And the newspaper editor, well, small towns love a good scandal, especially when it involves prominent local business owners. I delivered all 3 packages on Monday afternoon, then went home and waited. I didn't have to wait long. Susan Foster called me Tuesday morning, crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Ed, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. If I'd known what Derek was doing—" "It's not your fault, Susan. How long have you known?" "A few weeks. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I needed to be sure, and because I needed to document everything properly." "For the divorce?" "Among other things." She was quiet for a moment. "Ed, there's something else. Something you should know." "What's that?" This isn't Derek's first affair. There was another woman 2 years ago. I found out and confronted him, and he promised it would never happen again. But you stayed with him. I thought I could fix things. I thought if I was a better wife, if I paid more attention to him, if I lost weight and dressed better. God, I was so stupid. You weren't stupid, Susan. You were loyal. There's a difference. What are you going to do now? I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who Derek Foster really is. Good. He deserves whatever he gets. Margaret Chen's response was more professional, but equally swift. She called Tuesday afternoon to inform me that Olivia had been placed on administrative leave pending an internal review of her conduct. I can't discuss the details, Margaret said, but I want you to know that this firm doesn't tolerate behavior that reflects poorly on our reputation. I understand. Olivia was a good employee, but personal integrity is non-negotiable in this business. I appreciate you taking this seriously. Of course. And Ed? I'm sorry this happened to you. You deserve better. The newspaper editor's response was the most interesting. He called Tuesday evening to ask if I'd be willing to do an interview. An interview about what? About the challenges facing modern marriages in small communities, the pressures, the temptations, the breakdown of traditional values. You want to make this into a story? I want to explore the broader social implications. Your situation isn't unique, unfortunately, but it does illustrate some important issues about trust, commitment, and accountability. And Derek and Olivia would be mentioned specifically? As examples, yes. With your permission, of course. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. You have my permission. The article ran on Thursday morning, front page of the lifestyle section. The headline read, "When Trust Breaks Down, a Local Marriage Destroyed by Infidelity and Betrayal." It featured a large photo of me sitting in my workshop, looking like a man who'd been wronged but wasn't broken. The article told the whole story. Derek's business problems, his affair with a married employee of a local marketing firm, the impact on both families, the broader pattern of infidelity in professional relationships. It was tastefully written but devastating in its implications. By Thursday afternoon, my phone was ringing constantly. Friends offering support, neighbors expressing outrage, former clients asking if I needed work. The whole town was talking about Derek Foster and his married girlfriend. Derek called me Thursday evening. He was furious. "You son of a bitch, you destroyed my life." "No, Derek, you destroyed your life. I just documented it." Susan left me. She took the kids and moved in with her mother. Good for her. The licensing board suspended my contractor's license pending investigation. I heard. I'm going to lose everything. My business, my house, my family. You should have thought about that before you started screwing my wife. This is insane, Ed. All this over a woman who doesn't even want you anymore. This isn't about Olivia. This is about consequences. What consequences? We're all adults here. People have affairs. It happens. And sometimes the people they hurt fight back. That happens too. Derek was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, smaller. What do you want? Money? An apology? What will it take to make this stop? Nothing. Because it's already over. You've lost everything you're going to lose. Now you get to live with what's left. Ed, please, I'm begging you. I have kids. I have responsibilities. You should have remembered that before you decided to trade your family for a few hours a week with my wife. I hung up on him. Olivia called an hour later. She was crying, but this time it sounded different, angrier. How could you do this to me? To us? Us. There is no us, Olivia. There hasn't been for months. You humiliated me in front of the entire town. Margaret fired me. My parents won't even talk to me. Actions have consequences. This is cruel, Ed. This is vindictive and cruel and completely out of proportion. Is it? Let me ask you something. When you were planning your affair with Derek, did you think about consequences then? That's different. How? Because we weren't trying to hurt anyone. We were just trying to be happy. At my expense. At Susan's expense. At the expense of everyone who trusted you. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did go this far. And now you get to live with the results. I can't get another job, not here. Everyone knows what happened. Then leave. This is my home. No, this was your home. You gave that up when you decided to trade me in for Derek Foster. She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. I hate you. I know. I will never forgive you for this. I'm not asking you to. Derek was right, you are pathetic. You're small and petty and vindictive. Maybe, but I'm not a cheater, and I'm not a liar. At least I tried to find happiness. At least I took a chance on something better. How did that work out for you? She hung up without answering. Friday morning brought the final piece of the puzzle. Mick called to tell me that Derek's construction company had lost its 3 biggest contracts. The medical complex, the new shopping center, the office building renovation, all canceled due to concerns about contractor reliability and professional conduct. He's finished, Mick said. Completely finished. It'll be years before he can rebuild his reputation, if ever. And Olivia? Unemployable in this town. Her boss made sure word got around to the other marketing firms. Nobody wants to hire someone with that kind of baggage. So they'll leave. Most likely. Start over somewhere else if they can. I felt a strange sense of completion. Not satisfaction exactly, but a kind of balance. The scales had been evened. That evening I was working in my shop when I heard a car in the driveway. I looked out to see Derek's truck parked behind my car. Derek got out, walked to my front door, and rang the bell. I took my time answering. He looked terrible. Unshaven, hollow-eyed, wearing clothes that looked like he'd slept in them. We need to talk. No, we don't. 5 minutes, please. Against my better judgment, I let him in. We stood in the living room, 2 men who used to be friends, now separated by betrayal and revenge. I came to tell you that Olivia and I are leaving town, he said. Together? Together. We're going to start over somewhere else. Good luck with that. Ed, I want you to know that I never meant for things to happen this way. But they did happen this way. I know you probably don't believe this, but I did care about our friendship. I valued what we had. Not enough to keep your hands off my wife. He looked down at his feet. No, not enough for that. Is there a point to this conversation, Derek? I wanted to ask you something. Man to man. What? Do you feel better now? Now that you've destroyed both our lives? Do you feel like justice has been served? I thought about the question. Did I feel better? Did I feel vindicated? Did I feel like the scales had been balanced? I feel like things are the way they should be, I said finally. Which is, you and Olivia deserve each other. You're both selfish, dishonest people who think the world owes you happiness at other people's expense. Now you get to be selfish and dishonest together without dragging anyone else down with you. That's a pretty cold way to look at it. It's an honest way to look at it. Derek nodded slowly. I guess that's something at least. Honesty. It's more than you ever gave me. You're right. It is. He turned toward the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, Ed, you're a better man than I am. I know. After he left, I went back to my workshop and picked up the project I'd been working on. A jewelry box made from cherry wood, with hand-cut dovetail joints and a velvet-lined interior. It was the most beautiful piece I'd ever created. I wasn't making it for Olivia. I was making it for myself, as a reminder that some things are worth the time and effort it takes to do them right. Saturday morning, I drove past Derek's house on my way to the hardware store. There was a moving truck in the driveway and boxes stacked on the front porch. I could see Derek and Olivia loading furniture, working together with the grim efficiency of people who had no choice but to cooperate. Olivia looked up as I drove past. Our eyes met for just a moment, and I saw something in her face I'd never seen before. Not anger, not sadness, but a kind of recognition, an understanding that this was how things ended when you pushed the wrong person too far. I didn't slow down. I didn't wave. I just kept driving. That afternoon, Linda Morrison knocked on my door with a casserole and a bottle of wine. "I thought you might be hungry," she said, "and I thought you might want some company." "That's very kind of you. Can I come in?" I let her in, and we sat at my kitchen table eating her excellent lasagna and talking about everything except Derek and Olivia. "So, what happens now?" she asked eventually. "Now, I figure out what comes next." "Any ideas?" "A few. I'm thinking about expanding the workshop, maybe taking on some bigger projects. Custom furniture, built-ins, that sort of thing." "Sounds like a good plan." "What about you? What comes next for Linda Morrison?" She smiled. "Well, I was serious about that husband trait if you're interested." I laughed. "Let me get divorced first." "Fair enough. But don't wait too long. I'm not getting any younger." "Neither am I." "No, but you're getting wiser. And that's more attractive than young any day." After she left, I sat in my quiet house and thought about the future. For the first time in years, it felt like something I could look forward to instead of something I had to endure. Sunday morning, I drove past Derek's house again. The moving truck was gone. The house was empty. Derek Foster and Olivia Tate had left town, probably forever. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, no sense of victory or loss. Just a quiet certainty that justice had been served and balance had been restored. That afternoon, I called my lawyer to discuss the divorce proceedings. With Olivia gone and no assets to fight over, it would be simple and quick. "She's not contesting anything?" the lawyer asked. "Nothing to contest. She took what she wanted and left the rest." "That's unusual in these cases." "This wasn't a usual case." "No, I suppose it wasn't." "Ed, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you have any regrets about how you handled this situation?" I thought about it for a moment. "No. No regrets." "Even though it cost your wife her job and Derek his business?" "They made their choices. I just made sure those choices had consequences." "And you're okay with being the instrument of those consequences?" "I'm okay with being the person who refused to be a victim." The lawyer was quiet for a moment. "Well, I have to say, it's refreshing to work with someone who knows exactly what they want." "I've always known what I wanted. I just finally learned what I was willing to do to get it." Monday morning, I went back to work for the first time in 2 weeks. My boss, a decent man named Frank who'd known me for 10 years, called me into his office. "Ed, I heard about what happened. I'm sorry." "Thank you. If you need time off, or if you want to talk to someone, the company has resources." "I'm fine, Frank. Really." "You sure? Because what you went through, that's enough to break a lot of men." "It didn't break me. It just taught me some things I needed to learn." "Such as?" "Such as the difference between being nice and being respected. Such as the difference between keeping the peace and letting people walk all over you. Such as the difference between forgiveness and justice." Frank nodded slowly. "Well, you seem to have your head on straight. But if you change your mind about needing help, you just let me know." "I will." That week, I threw myself into work with an energy and focus I hadn't felt in years. I took on extra projects, stayed late, volunteered for the difficult jobs that other people avoided. It felt good to be useful, to be competent, to be valued for what I could do, instead of criticized for what I couldn't be. Friday evening, I was working late when my phone rang. It was Susan Foster. "Ed, I hope I'm not bothering you." "Not at all. How are you doing?" "Better. The kids and I moved into our own place this week. It's small, but it's ours. That's great, Susan. I wanted to thank you. For what? For telling me the truth. For giving me the evidence I needed to make a clean break. For showing me that I didn't have to just accept what Derek was doing. You don't need to thank me for that. Yes, I do, because you could have just handled your own situation and left me in the dark, but you didn't. You made sure I knew what kind of man I was married to. You deserved to know. Maybe, but a lot of people would have decided that wasn't their problem. Derek made it my problem when he decided to sleep with my wife. Susan laughed, but it wasn't a bitter sound. You know what's funny? I'm actually happier now than I've been in years. Even with all the upheaval, even with the kids asking questions I don't know how to answer, even with the financial stress, I'm happier. Because you're not living a lie anymore. Exactly. I'm not pretending everything is fine when it isn't. I'm not making excuses for someone else's bad behavior. I'm not walking on eggshells in my own home. That's worth something. It's worth everything. After we hung up, I sat in my empty office and thought about what she'd said, about being happier even in the midst of upheaval, about the relief that comes from not having to pretend anymore. I understood exactly what she meant. The divorce was finalized on a cold Tuesday morning in November. Olivia didn't attend the hearing. Her lawyer said she was living in another state now and couldn't travel. I didn't ask which state. I didn't care. The judge signed the papers, the lawyer shook my hand, and 15 years of marriage officially came to an end. That evening, Linda Morrison came over with another casserole and another bottle of wine. "How does it feel to be a free man?" she asked. "Expensive, but worth it." Any word from the happy couple? No, and I hope it stays that way. Do you think they'll make it? Derek and Olivia? I thought about it. No, they're both too selfish to make a real partnership work. They'll turn on each other eventually. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with it being their problem instead of mine. Linda raised her wine glass. To new beginnings. To new beginnings. We drank to that, and then we talked about other things. About her job at the library, about my plans for the workshop, about the neighborhood gossip that didn't involve cheating spouses and ruined reputations. It was a good evening, the first of many, I hoped. That night, alone in my house that no longer felt empty, I thought about the past 6 months. About the man I'd been and the man I'd become. About the choices I'd made and the prices I'd paid. I'd lost a wife, but I'd gained self-respect. I'd lost some friends, but I'd learned who my real friends were. I'd lost the illusion of a happy marriage, but I'd gained the reality of an honest life. It was a fair trade. 3 months later, I was in my workshop when I heard a car in the driveway. I looked out to see a police cruiser parked behind my truck. For a moment, my heart raced. Had Derek or Olivia filed some kind of complaint? Had I crossed a line somewhere without realizing it? But the officer who got out of the car was Mick, wearing his old uniform for some reason. Jesus, Mick, you scared me. Why are you dressed like a cop? Because I am a cop again. Got my old job back last week. Congratulations. What changed your mind about police work? You did, actually. Me. Working with you reminded me why I became a cop in the first place. To help people get justice when the system fails them. To make sure the bad guys don't always win. I'm not sure I was the good guy in this situation. You were the guy who refused to be a victim. Sometimes that's the same thing. We went into the house and I made coffee while Mick told me about his decision to return to law enforcement. The security consulting was fine, he said, but it didn't have the same sense of purpose. Working with you, seeing how much difference it made when someone finally stood up to the bullies, that reminded me what I was missing. So you're back to catching bad guys. I'm back to helping good people fight back against bad guys. There's a difference. And Derek and Olivia qualify as bad guys? People who think they can hurt others without consequences? People who lie and cheat and manipulate? Yeah, they qualify. Have you heard anything about them? As a matter of fact, I have. Derek's been arrested. I set down my coffee cup. For what? Fraud. Turns out he was running the same scams in his new town that he was running here. Falsifying inspection reports, using unlicensed subcontractors, billing for work that was never done. The local DA is throwing the book at him. And Olivia? Still with him, as far as I know. Though I can't imagine that'll last much longer, especially if he goes to prison. How long could he get? 5 to 10 if he's convicted on all counts. And the evidence is pretty solid. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Satisfaction, yes, but also something like pity. Derek had destroyed his life for a few months of excitement, and now he was going to pay a price that seemed almost too high. Almost. Do you feel bad for him? Mick asked, reading my expression. I feel bad for his kids. They didn't ask for any of this. No, they didn't. But Derek should have thought about that before he decided to be a criminal and a cheater. I suppose. Ed, let me ask you something. If you could go back and handle things differently, would you? I thought about it for a long time. About the man I'd been 6 months ago. Trusting and naive and willing to overlook almost anything for the sake of peace. About the woman I'd been married to, beautiful and cruel and utterly without conscience. About the friend who'd betrayed me for the chance to sleep with my wife. No, I said finally. I wouldn't change anything. Even knowing how much damage it would cause? Especially knowing that. Because the damage was already done, Mick. I just made it visible. And you're okay with being the person who made it visible? I'm okay with being the person who refused to pretend it wasn't there. Mick nodded. That's what I thought you'd say, and that's why I'm glad we're friends. After he left, I went back to my workshop and picked up the project I'd been working on. A rocking chair made from oak with hand-carved details and a finish that would last for generations. It was a commission from Linda, who wanted something special for her front porch. As I worked, I thought about the future, about the business I was building, the relationships I was forming, the life I was creating from the ashes of the old one. It was a good life, an honest life, a life worth living. And for the first time in years, it was entirely my own. 6 months after the divorce, Linda and I were married in a small ceremony in her backyard. Just family and close friends, nothing fancy or expensive. The kind of wedding two people have when they're more interested in the marriage than the party. Derek sent a card from prison. I didn't read it. I threw it away, unopened. Olivia sent nothing, which was exactly what I expected from her. A year later, Linda was pregnant with our first child, a son, we learned from the ultrasound. We decided to name him Michael, after Mick, who'd become more than a friend. He'd become family. 2 years later, my custom furniture business had grown large enough that I was able to quit my day job and work for myself full-time. Linda handled the books and the customer relations, while I focused on the craftsmanship. We were a good team. 3 years later, we bought a bigger house with a proper workshop and room for Michael to play. It was in a different neighborhood, away from the memories and the gossip and the ghosts of my previous life. It was a fresh start in every sense of the word. Sometimes, late at night when I was working in the shop, I would think about Olivia and Derek and wonder what had become of them. I never looked them up, never asked mutual acquaintances, never tried to find out. Their story was over as far as I was concerned. My story was just beginning. 5 years after that terrible night at the Hendersons barbecue, I was a different man living a different life. I had a wife who respected me, a son who adored me, and a business that fulfilled me. I had friends who valued my loyalty and customers who appreciated my work. I had everything I'd thought I wanted in my first marriage, but had never actually had. And I'd gotten it all by refusing to be a victim, by standing up for myself, by making sure that actions had consequences. The joke, as it turned out, was on them, not me.